and trade problems in the fastest possible way. We covered the border topics such as security, migration, and we also examined initiatives to consolidate our cooperation in global scenarios and global interests. I can highlight here that the areas where we agree are broader than our differences. There is a broad convergence of interest, and this is not only given to the fact that we share common goals, but there is a will on both of us to turn the fact of being neighbors into a partnerships that will act as a leveler for shared development. Fortunately, the serious economic global crisis is giving up. This opens up a window of opportunity for Canada, the United States, and Mexico to reposition Mexico and North America as a vigorous region, competitive and prosperous, capable of generating more and better jobs, a region that will be attractive for investments, trade exchange, and tourism with great perspectives facing the future. Together, we should increase our exporting capacity in a context of growing competitiveness among different regions of the world. We talked about the different obstacles that are there for complying with transportation obligations that have been established at NAFTA, a situation that impacts jobs, companies, and consumers in Mexico and in the United States. And we shall work in order to achieve a quick solution with a constructive, creative solution in the long term in this and many other areas. As the President has stated, we gave special attention to the border matters. The border is not only a place of encounter for both our nations, but it's also an area of opportunity for our aspirations that we share regarding development. For this, we will allocate more resources for the border infrastructure in order that it will be at the height of the needs of our economies and communities, and that it will benefit both sides of the border. We will strengthen the coordination among the government officials on both sides of the border to reinforce security. We want to make this quite clear. We, both countries, want to have a safe border for our people. We agreed upon the urgency of reinforce the actions to stop the flow of drugs, weapons, and cash. And for this, we will work with full obedience to the legislations and jurisdictions of each country in a co-responsible way. In reference to the migratory issue, I acknowledge the sensitivity and the commitment of President Obama to look for a comprehensive solution that will be respectful of the rights of the individuals and will be adjusting itself in a realistic way to the needs of both our economies. We talked openly about this and other issues. We identified that the economies of our countries are clearly complementing each other. And when we integrating them, they are a powerful tool to bring productivity and competitiveness up within the whole region. Greater competitiveness in North America means more jobs and better living conditions for the people of the United States and for the people of Mexico. In Mexico, we are and will continue being respectful of the internal policies of the United States and its legitimate right to establish, in accordance to its constitution, whatever laws it approves. But we will retain our firm rejection to criminalize migration so that people that work and provide things to this nation will be treated as criminals. And we oppose firmly the SB 1070 Arizona law, given in fair principles that are partial and discriminatory. This and other issues were covered during this meeting, which I would dare to say that it's historic given the level of understanding and trust that we have reached. For the meantime, I would just like to highlight this open and honest and constructive dialogue that we keep and hold with the government of President Obama and these two countries that allows me to see the strength and leadership of the President of the United States. Thank you, President Obama, for your hospitality. I want to thank all of you for your kind attention.
Okay, we've got time for one question each. I'm going to call on Lourdes from Univision. Why don't you wait for the microphone so we can hear you?
Here.
Thank you, Mr. President. President Calderon called again the Arizona law discriminatory. You have called it misdirected. Do you agree with him? What impact do you think that this law can have on the U.S.-Mexico relations, the prospect for immigration reform, and the lives of millions of Mexican Americans in this country? And what actions did you tell the President Calderon that you would follow in the following days and weeks?
Well, I think the Arizona law has the potential of being applied in a discriminatory fashion. Now, after it was initially passed, the Arizona legislature amended it and said that this should not be carried out in a discriminatory way, but I think a fair reading of the language of the statute indicates that it gives the possibility of individuals who are deemed suspicious of being illegal immigrants from being harassed or arrested, and the judgments that are going to be made in applying this law are troublesome. Now, what I've directed my Justice Department to do is to look very carefully at the language of this law to see whether it comports both with our core values and existing legal standards, as well as the fact that the federal government is ultimately the one charged with immigration policy. And I expect to get a final report back from the Justice Department soon, at which point we'll make some decisions in terms of how we are going to address that law. Now, what I've also said, though, is that the Arizona law, I think, expresses some of the frustrations that the American people have had in not fixing a broken immigration system. And, frankly, the failures of the federal government to get this done. I'm sympathetic to those frustrations. I share those frustrations, which is why, from the time that I was a U.S. Senator through the time that I ran for president until now, I have consistently said that I'm supportive of a comprehensive immigration reform approach. And I think the majority of American people are open to a comprehensive immigration reform approach, which would say the following things. Number one, that the federal government takes its responsibilities for securing our borders seriously. And as I just stated in my opening remarks, we have actually put more resources, more personnel on the borders, and illegal immigration is actually down on the borders, not up. I know that's not the perception out there, but that's the fact. But we haven't done enough. So we've got a responsibility to create an orderly border, and that's something that we have to do not unilaterally, but also working with the Mexican government, because there are enormous flows of trade and tourists and people along the border region. The economies are interdependent, and we've got to control the borders, but do so in a way that does not have an adverse impact on the economies of those regions. The second thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure that businesses are following the rules and are not actively recruiting undocumented workers so that they don't have to abide by overtime laws, they don't have to abide by minimum wage laws, they don't have to abide by worker safety laws, and otherwise undercut basic worker protections that exist. And they have to be held accountable and responsible. The third thing we have to do is to make sure that those who have come to this country illegally are held accountable. And that means they need to pay a fine, they need to pay back taxes. I believe they should learn English. I believe that it is important for them to get to the back of the line and not in the front, but that we create a pathway so that they have an opportunity, if they're following the rules, following the law, to become legal residents and ultimately citizens of this country.